Welcome back. So this is New Year's Eve 2020. I'm going to do a recap of the entire year. I'm going to give you guys my entire game stats for the year. I'm going to break down quite a few different things in the most authentic way and as detailed as I can remember them. It took me a while to try and piece this together. But before we kick it off, I'm Dave. This channel is dedicated to giving you no BS, novel, dating advice for the modern man. Top link in the description to get some coaching with me, and my autobiography is in the description as well. So, what we're going to do is we're going to break down everything that I've done this year, my results, also some of my clients' results, and just give a bit of an overview of the year for me so far. So the way I look at it is approximately how many approaches do you do per day, and are you doing it with your life, like what you do day-to-day life, or do you just wait till the weekends and have a big session? Now, no matter where I am, I will strike up a conversation everywhere, anywhere, even in the middle of lockdown. Okay, so for me, it doesn't matter where I'm at. In a mall, I'm in a cafe, I'm in a shopping center. It doesn't matter. I'll strike up a conversation anywhere, with any way, shape, or form, any way I can. Right? That's what I recommend that you guys do. Now, to start off with my results, firstly, I'm about 40 years old. I am 174, 173, something like that, centimeters. I think it's 5'8" tall. I'm about 40 years old. I'm a little bit pudgy. I've got these titties that I haven't been able to get rid of this year. I've got a bit of a gut. It's not that bad. It's actually not that bad, but it's bad enough to negatively affect my results. Got some grey hairs. Obviously, I'm dyeing my hair. I dye my hair or it'd all be grey. It actually would all be grey if I didn't dye it. You can see it propping up. So not necessarily that tall. A little bit pudgy. These are things that I can control to some extent, even though I've been dieting all year. I've been speaking to people. I developed a bit of plantar fasciitis in my feet, so I wasn't able to work off this. I was doing like push-ups and all these other things in the middle of the quarantine. Wasn't able to really get my body looking the way I liked. Unfortunately, that's life. You have peaks and you have troughs. Sometimes I'm on fire. There's been years where I've been on fire, where I've been swimming every day and everything's looking great, and I've just had phenomenal results those years. Some years like this, not so much. Okay, there's zero nightclubs. So I'm not taking into account nightclubs. Obviously, there weren't any open anyway. Tinder, I only used it to try to make that video that you guys saw previously, where I used like a really handsome guy to see if I could somehow flip it, because I don't get matches. At 40, if I put my real age in there, I'm only really gonna get 35-year-old women like that I'm not really interested in anyway. I'd rather just not have sex than sleep with girls my own age. I'm just not attracted to them, to be honest. That's why I got into Daygame in the first place. I am in a first world country, so there's a lot of guys out there that talk about game, but they're swiping right on Tinder with an American passport, carrying USD in their pockets, in South America, Brazil, or Mexico, or Colombia. Okay, I'm not in a third world country. I'm not in South America. I'm not in Eastern Europe. I'm not in Poland, Ukraine, Belarus. I'm not in Sweden. I'm not in Hungary. I'm not in any of those countries where it's a lot easier to game. I'm in a first world country. and arguably a more conservative first world city, which is Sydney, Australia. One of the most difficult places. Melbourne's pretty difficult as well. So you need to take all of that into account. There's a lot of competition in these cities, so therefore you need to take that into account. I'm not swiping right on Tinder in a third world country. Okay, now add some more context to that. I've only ever been to a third world country for 14 days. At the end of those 14 days, I was with a friend of mine. I couldn't keep track of how many girls I slept with. It was so easy. Now, I had 100% pull rate out of the nightclubs there. And after 14 days, I'd slept with 15 girls. Every single one was under 25, at least minimum 15 to almost 20 years younger than me, okay? So a third world country is definitely not comparable to me being in a first world country without nightclubs, without any online dating, and in the middle of COVID, which is we've had quarantine almost all year, okay? So take all of these factors into account. Every day I would do approximately 3 approaches per day, even in the middle of the heaviest lockdown. Okay, so even in the middle of the heaviest, absolutely worst, heaviest lockdown, I am averaging it over the course of the entire year. So approximately 3 per day. That works out to be about 1,100 approaches per year. So this year, I can say approximately 1,100 approaches in this 1 year. Now, if we were to add nightclubs on a normal year, you would definitely quadruple that, because you hit a nightclub and you do at minimum 20, 30 approaches per night. You go around, you just work your way around the nightclub, and depending on your mate value, it's really a mate value playoff on who you're approaching in the nightclubs, etc. But this year, 1,100 approaches, approximately 3 per day. Now, out of that, I've got some highlights. There was a girl that was like a part-time model. Yeah, so, and she was doing a little bit of acting. That was a very big highlight for me. Massive following on Instagram. Locked her in for a regular until she got bored. To be honest, what the hell was she doing with me? I got lucky. I found myself a really hot and wealthy Chinese girl, and I was staying at her apartment in the middle of the lockdown. That was amazing. A highlight was I had a date with she was like an African Australian model. She was in Sydney. I didn't end up converting that one, unfortunately, but that's still a highlight. Another one was a Polish girl that did her PhD, so she was a highly intelligent girl in her 20s and she was super hot. Didn't convert that one either, unfortunately. Another highlight was right in the middle of the lockdown. I got 3 lays in 1 week entirely from Daygame. So one was from the station, like literally just met her at the station and we went directly back to my bedroom. Approximately an hour, which is pretty fast. Another one was about 8 p.m. at night. I went to just to get some food at the local Coles, and I met a girl there. Literally came straight back to my place for dinner. That was another one in the same week. And the third one, I was in the city, so I was further away from my place, and she went home, had a shower, and agreed to come straight back to my place. I did all 3 in 1 week, and I managed to lock in one of them as a regular for a brief period of time, maybe 6 to 2 months, something like that. I had approximately, it's hard to gauge these things at the end of the year, approximately 23 or more. It feels like a lot more, to be honest. Failed pulls. So these were pulls that ended up in my bedroom and they didn't convert. They got cold feet. They weren't interested. Something went wrong. I don't know. These type of things happen all the time. Approximately 23, which is outrageous, but a lot of the time, if you are aiming for girls above your mate value, your game and running through the process will get them back to your place. But if they just look at you and they're like, whoa, you've got good game, you managed to get me back to your bedroom, and you seem pretty cool, but really I'm not attracted to you, that's not necessarily your game. People might argue that, oh, you should have sexualized it. Well, if you had have sexualized it previously, she probably wouldn't have even made it back there, so therefore logistically you can't score when you're outside, you have to score when you're in the bedroom, right? So those guys that think, oh look, you should have seeded it and you should have escalated better before you pulled, and all these other guys, these guys have no idea what they're talking about. Sometimes you can escalate too much outside and they're like, what's wrong with this guy? We're outside, especially during quarantine and COVID. You can't just go around escalating on people. You can't even shake hands with people these days. So 23. There was one girl that seemed a little bit crazy, Aussie girl that was 20. I literally got her out the front. She was crazy and I was just like, I'm not going to risk it with a crazy girl. I'm like, see you later. So there were a lot of factors like that that are sometimes out of your control, and you got to identify neurotic girls and just go, look, see you later. You can go home. I'm going to walk you to the station or the bus. I'll get you an Uber or whatever. You need to go, because there's no way I'm going to have you inside my place and possibly sleep with you and then have you go crazy in the morning and regret it or something like that because there's something wrong with you up here. So that's something I recommend for you guys at home. You either get out your camera and you get consent on camera if they seem a little bit off, or just don't risk it. There's plenty more fish in the sea. When I look at my results, 60%, approximately 60% were under 25. I had one girl who was 34. She was by far the oldest, so at 40, so 6 years younger. That's within my range. One girl that was 34, 60% were under 25, and the rest were between, say, 25 and 29. So the vast majority were under 29, so minimum 10 to 15 years younger than me. That's girls above my mate value, and they were not unattractive girls that I was approaching, so you need to take that into account as well. So for instance, once I was on the train and I was speaking to a girl that was in her early 30s, and she was an Aussie Caucasian girl. Instantly hit it off, obviously in her early 30s, and I just was like, I'm not really that interested. I'd rather a girl that's under 25, right? I might be 40, but I'm aiming way up, and that's what the definition of game is. The definition of game is not being a 25-year-old guy sleeping with 40-year-old girls. There's if you're 40, aiming under 25 is evidence of game. If you can get girls 18 to 21, then that is as advanced as it gets. There's a lot of guys out there that talk about approach ratios. I actually searched other videos on this topic before I made this video. One guy was saying beginners is 1 lay to every 100 approaches, and intermediate is 1 lay to every 50 approaches. This is ridiculous, because if I wanted to just get a high lay to approach ratio, well, firstly I'll do it in a third world country, because they don't even tell you that, do they? One. Secondly, the other factor is I'll just approach girls that were like 30 to 35. If I'm 40 and I'm you know, well spoken, I've got good game, 30 to 35, I'll just take them on a few dates, put them on the conveyor belt of dates, you know, first date, second date, third date. I'll just go on this conveyor belt of dates and then just knock them off at the end. I'll just have a huge approach to lay ratio, but really I'm approaching girls on my level or a little bit beneath my level. That's not really counted, guys. Being my age and aiming for girls that are 25 and younger is girls way above my mate value. And this is something that a lot of those guys out there that give you day game statistics, they don't actually tell you that because they want to be able to fudge the results in their favor. So the nurse, I wasn't interested in her, so I just didn't go through with it, right? Another thing happened was last week as an example, I met, it was raining, and this girl, she pulls out her umbrella and goes, "Oh, you want to jump under my umbrella?" She was like 32 or something, right? She was okay, but at the end we start talking, and then I started going in, running my running my kind of conversation with her and suggesting that we hang out. Then I thought, okay, let's hang out sometime. I'll see you later. Bye. And then I ejected because if I was going to do that, I'd get on Tinder, wouldn't I? I'd get on Tinder, I'd probably fudge my age down to say 35 or something and aim for girls that are 30. But that's not the point of day game. And that's why a lot of the coaches out there, which you guys can fact check yourself, the vast majority of coaches, they quit about 35 or 40. I'm just starting out at this age. So I just started coaching at this age. Which goes against the trend, against the grain. The vast majority of the coaches, by the time they hit 35, they realize that their game is terrible. Their strategies suck, and they were only relying purely on their looks. So therefore their strategies suck, and therefore the strategies they give to their clients is not working. So they quit around 35, 40. This is the general trend. A lot of them will tell you that they're never going to quit, but yeah, you can see it. It's out there. At the end of the year, I had about 6 regulars locked in. A regular is a girl that you sleep with 3 times or more, in my opinion. That's my definition of it. I don't know what other people's definition is. I believe if you sleep with her the 3rd time, generally they can be locked in. I had 6 regulars over the course of the year. A lot went wrong with certain ones. You know, some either just said, the model girl, she said, "Oh look, I'm too busy with my modeling," and all these other, you know, some excuse. At the end of the year, right now I've got 2 regulars left. So I've got a 26-year-old and a 24-year-old. That's another factor I think is important. Talking about the mate value playoff, which I think is very relevant. This year, for the first year in a few years, I actually went out of my way to meet some guys in a few of the groups. I met up with a few guys, and I think it's also good for me to meet up with them and see what type of guys they are. They're only new to game, and I can identify who they are and what I think they need to change. Obviously, I didn't really push it too much. In the very beginning, I kind of did. I met one guy who was really jacked, 25-year-old white guy. And he's like, yeah, he's, you know, he's making relatively good money, I think, doing coding or whatever. His game is terrible. The way he does things is terrible. Has a massive ego, but he's at 25, going out on he's approaching girls that are like 40. He went out on a date with a girl that was 30, like 5 years older than him, and he's 25. I would never have done that at his age. So I was meeting these guys, and it was very interesting to see the way they're approaching it. I'm seeing a lot of guys come into game that are relatively new in 2020 in Sydney, and I can identify what's going wrong with them. Some of them remind me of guys that I've met in the past, and the mistakes that they're making today are blatantly obvious. I know the video that I made that just went up live not long ago. The guy that's in Ukraine, I remember meeting him when he was relatively new, American guy. He's literally make the mistakes that he was making back then. These new bunch of guys that I've met recently, some of them are making the exact same mistakes, and they don't fully understand. I guess, like, I can't really talk to them. They've got, a lot of them have massive egos, and they think they know everything and they're going to figure it out the same way he did back then. But it did take him 5, 6, 7 years to realize how wrong he was and really come full circle. He actually met up with people like Roosh V in person, and gamed with them and spent a lot of time out on his own before he realized, oh gee, these are the mistakes that I was doing in the past. I have spent, another factor is this year I have spent coaching guys, so it's my first year where really I got some proper clients this year, 2020. 3 of them have either girlfriends now after doing my coaching. I think they're locked in. I think they're relatively happy. I suggest that they keep their options open, but if they're happy within, with their girlfriend, that's perfectly okay. Which is good. It's important that people are happy no matter where they are in their life. If they're happy with the girl that they're with, if that was the goal, to just get in there, get a girlfriend quick, and then get out, that's fine. That's perfectly fine. One guy, and you know who you are. Has a whole bunch of regulars. He's turned into a bit of a demon recently. Multiples of dates. I think this week he had 3 dates with 3 dates in one day. Ridiculous amount of dates and instant dates and pulls, and I think he might have a couple regulars locked in now. It's hard to keep up with him. He's doing better than me already. After seeing his results and some of the other guys that I've helped out this year, I'm starting to think maybe I'm a better coach than I am at actually doing game. But on the flip side, it's a different way of looking at things. So when I'm looking at other guys, I'm thinking, how can I help them? What do they need to tweak? What type of methods and strategies should they use? How should they change their life to improve their results, etc.? That's been another an interesting way of looking at things, because if I'm helping them, then it's hard to flip, and then for me to go do approaches as well, I need to focus on myself as well, which makes it a little bit different and takes away time from me selfishly just focusing on myself getting results. So therefore it takes time, and I need to put it in over there. Sometimes, like sleepless nights where I'm sitting up going, do I have the right strategy for this guy? Is this going to work for him long term? Gee, I hope this works out, because you never know what's going to happen, because I'm relatively new to the whole coaching scene. But so far the results have been quite phenomenal. I think I've got quite a few testimonials on this channel already, which is quite good. And AV, your video is up. You have 12 months to lose some weight. Yes, I'm talking to you, AV. You need to lose minimum 5 more kilos, or more, maybe 10 kilos. We need to check where you're at the moment. that weight needs to come off because it's negative. It's going to negatively affect your results in 2021. AV. I'm watching you. We've got a lot of work to do with you. Also, a boot camp student was supposed to arrive in a couple days, but COVID locked down the border. So we're gonna have to postpone that because of we had a few more cases and the government locked down the border, so that's off for now. And so I think when I look at the overall the year, taking into account all of the factors of this year, you know, COVID, which means there's no nightclubs, there's no Tinder, there's no online dating. Obviously, I don't really like it anyway. It's not Tinder or online dating is useless to you if you're of lower mate value. You have to do day game, and if you're of lower mate value and you're not tall and young, nightclubs are pretty much useless to you as well. So you have to do day game. Also, I'm living right now. My logistics are terrible. I'm like a bus and a train out of the center of the city where the highest population is. I'm in an area that is full of wealthy Chinese and Koreans, and they're extremely racist. They don't like white people, so it's a very difficult area. So that's not making excuses, that's just the fact. And my client that had to change his get an apartment in a different location, you know who you are. You are aware of how important logistics are, because as soon as you moved, everything changed. He's very happy now. So taking into account all of that, I think it's been a relatively successful year. Approximately 3 approaches per day, approximately 1,100 approaches at the end of the year. Obviously, we need to take into account girls that you approach and they are married, they are gay, they're lesbians or whatever, they have a boyfriend, they are in a terrible mood. So you take into account all of those. At the end of it, it works out to be approximately 19. It took me a while to break this down. I had to go through my phone. 19 lays at the end of 2020. Works out to be approximately 1 every 60 approaches. You need to take into account, if I did 19 for 2020 with pure day game, also need to take into account the fact that 60% of them were under 25. I dare say the 34-year-old, there was one that I would count that was probably on my level. 6 years younger than me is not really a good ratio as far as I'm concerned. So we could probably say 18 decent girls above my mate value, and some of them were way above my mate value, where I looked at them and I thought, what the hell are you doing with me? That works out to be 1 girl every 60 approaches. But obviously the ratio for a first world country and a guy of my age that is not throwing around a lot of money. I'm living in a bit of a dump at the moment. Not rich, a little bit pudgy, 40 years old. Mate values not very high. And with all of the phenomenal results, so some of them were outrageously good results. So I think 19 at the end of 2020, with everything taken into account and the complexities of this, if I was living in a third world country, I would have, I don't know, 350 lays for 2020. But 19 for first world country with bad logistics, my age, my mate value, and everything else taken into account. That's my results for this year. And I will do this at the end of 2021, and hopefully I can do some travel and I'll be able to supercharge those results. but obviously I'm focusing more on coaching as well, so that's why I went out of my way to meet some other guys out of the groups. Another factor is 2020, I am looking to get an apartment right in the center of the city and offer up one or two rooms to other guys at a higher rate, so you actually get to live with me. But it'll probably won't be really expensive. It will just be maybe $100 more than the usual rate per room, and you'll get to live with me and ask me questions and game with me every day anyway. So send me a DM on Telegram or whatever if you're interested in that. I'm actually going to make a video about that tomorrow or in the next week if I get a chance. But that's my day game stats for 2020. I look forward to seeing if any of the other coaches out there put forward their results, and they put it out there in a complex way, like a comprehensive way, like what I just told you guys, and they're honest with you about their results, because I think that's very important, especially if they're swiping right on Tinder in third world countries, or they're jacked pretty boys, yad stopping girls in Colombia, Mexico, Brazil. I'll see you guys in the next video.